So, guys, I want to talk about AEW Double or Nothing, and I want to mention that it's very, very disappointing because they don't have like the best ticket sale for it right now. I believe they sold around like 7,000 or 8,000 tickets, and the arena capacity is around 21 or 22,000 people. But the other big part of it is that with AEW, they always have this issue with their pay per views. Usually, if they have a bunch of storylines and a bunch of matches, possibly between a month prior, usually it's going to be a good show. But usually, and we've seen this pattern with AEW, is that sometimes they will announce a lot of last minute matches, and that's kind of when they struggle really because the philosophy of AEW has always been to be more match focused than story focused, and sometimes people will understand what a rush job is. So I'm a little worried about AEW Double or Nothing. So I decided, with Anarchy, I decided also talk about this as well. Really, is that another big concern is we don't know if there's going to be Anarchy in the arena this year, and we also don't know if they're going to say no Anarchy in the arena. We're just going to do Blood and Guts. So, it's definitely kind of really concerning. So I decided, since we only have two matches on the card, why not do a 12 match card? And I'll talk about the matches. I'll talk about the results that I have in this fantasy booking and why it all works. So the first match I would have is Anarchy in the Arena. John Moxley, Claudia, Wheeler Yuta, and FTR versus Samoa Joe, Hobbs, Shibata, Swerve, and Daniel Garcia. So the first thing I want to say is that Dax and Wheeler participated in Anarchy in the Arena last year. So it would be good to see heel and babyface, how much they changed in a year. So that's a good visual. And then the other thing, too, is that they're planning on probably Swerve and Hangman becoming a team. You know, so you can do like FTR versus you can do like FTR versus Swerve and Hangman. And then the other thing too is that if you make the Hurt Syndicate babyfaces, people like them a lot. Dax and Cash Wheeler can be like legitimate heels and all that. So this helps establish them, and it would make sense for them to grab. It would make sense for them to get over as heels to do this. And the next thing is that for like the ops, really, I would have Swerve and Daniel Garcia. The reason why I was going to do Hangman, and I think that would be good, but I'm not really a big fan of. Okay, well, you're going to have Hangman and Will Ospreay. If Hangman wins or loses, he's going to, he's going to, appear in this match because I don't want him to do a betrayal or anything like that because I don't want to see a WCW type of thing or a TNA type of thing where let's say if he betrays the Young Bucks and then later on at All In he gets like beaten up by the Young Bucks or whatever. I don't want to see any of that crap because you don't want to emotionally invest into a big moment and then kind of like screw people over. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you don't. So I want to keep Hangman out of this. And then the other thing too is that you don't really have any plans for Daniel Garcia, and Daniel Garcia to me is somebody who really cares about AEW, and he was a TNT champion. They've not really given him like a storyline or anything kind of like to really ground him. So this would kind of give him a big spot really and to say, hey, what can he contribute? What can he do? What can he do with promos? Maybe he and Swerve can be a tag team or something like that. So it really just pushes a different direction really. And what I would do is I would have John Moxley win, and I would have this stipulation that if the Ops win, Samoa Joe, if Team AEW wins, Samoa Joe gains the AEW championship. If John Moxley wins, they gain back the trios title. And that's how I would do it. And the other thing that I would do with this is that I have John Moxley win because he needs to look like a legitimate threat. He would create a lot of heel heat. And whoever faces him at AEW All In, they're going to deal with like the top heel in the company, really. And he is the top heel in the company. So that's how I would do it. The next match is that I would do Tony Storm versus Athena in a number one contendership match. So I think it's called Championship Series, where a champion holds a title, but somebody has to beat them twice to get to win the championship. I'm not really a big fan of that, but that's what they're doing with Tony Storm. So you have to make that a little bit unpredictable. So I would say that Tony Storm versus Athena would be what to do, really. And then what they say is, okay, well, now Athena beat Tony Storm, so now at AEW All In, we're going to have the ROH Women's Championship, the AEW Women's Championship, the TBS Championship, and the winner take all. So I think that that's what I would do. I would have that, and I would actually have Athena beat Tony Storm, and then I would do a winner take alls type of match to add AEW, um, at AEW All In. Like I would just have Tony Storm beat both of them, and then I think at the very end, what I would do is I would have Tony Storm just announce that she's going to, give these titles up to have tournaments, and that'd be that really. But the rule of but then what happens is Athena can't be the ROH Women's Championship. She can't be participating in that tournament, nor can Mercedes Moné. And that's how I would do it, because you don't want to create a situation where Mercedes wins and then she's like in her own Mercedes, like like 3 belts now, 6 belts, and she's rarely defending all of them. So we don't want that situation. That's how I would book it. Mercedes Moné versus Jamie Hayter, Owen Hart tournament. Mercedes Moné is the top heel in the women's division, so I really think that she needs to win this match. If you have Jamie Hayter do that, that's going to be like, what the fuck, really? That's going to be like a whole very lackluster. The next match is Will Ospreay versus Hangman Adam Page. I actually want to see Adam Page beat Will Ospreay. That will tell a better story. I know the popular opinion would be Will Ospreay, but what I would do is that I would have Hangman Adam Page versus Jon Moxley, and then you make Adam Page the AEW champion, and then at Forbidden Door you do Will Ospreay versus Hangman Adam Page one more time, like 2 out of 3 falls match, or you do something where you may have Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page. And then what you do is have Will Ospreay go after the British Heavyweight Championship, because he did talk about that. But I think that having Will Ospreay face the champion at AEW Forbidden Door is the best option for him. I think that if you want to have a really good story and do good storytelling, it has to be Adam Page taking on Jon Moxley. And that's the story to tell, really, because you don't know if Adam Page is going to work with the Young Bucks to get to join the Moxley faction, or if Adam Page is going to betray everybody, then just like go on his own, really, or he's going to join Team AEW. There's a lot of where it's going to go, really. There's a lot of storytelling within that versus Will Ospreay. And then also too with Adam Page, that he kind of was like, he was kind of like a transitional champion when CM Punk came. So this is kind of almost like, well, he's worked hard, he's fought hard, he's grown as a character. Well, let's see what he can do, really. And also like the Cowboy in Texas, this kind of is the better, road for him. So I really think that if you want to have a really great match, it should be Hangman Adam Page versus Jon Moxley. So that's what I would do as far as my fantasy booking. The next match that I would do is Willow Nightingale versus Marina Shafir. They've fought before. They've had some interactions, but I think that Marina Shafir is probably not that experienced. A lot of people are saying she's very inexperienced, so I don't want to see her in Anarchy in the Arena unless she can be thrown through tables or through a lot of violent, hardcore shit spots. But I don't think that she has it. So I think just to stay safe, I want to do Willow Nightingale versus Marina Shafir in a tables match, because that way you have 2 members of the Death Rider. You have the Death Riders and Team AEW, like the women. They have a match. They take it really far, and then they just kind of it is what it is. Really, you can see like a run-in at the very end during Anarchy in the Arena, but it's like what I said. I don't think Marina Shafir should be in that spot or in a blood and gut spot. I think that because she's kind of not shown a lot as a wrestler, really, that this is the best way to really just, book her. And pardon me, guys, I work the night shift at my job. So, that's how I would do it. The next match I would do is Mina Shirakawa, Harley Cameron, Julia Hart, and Megan Bayne for the TBS Championship, a contendership match. Because the one thing I also want to do with AEW is that if you want to do some really good booking, you have to have championship matches before All In, just to be like anything can happen. So I would have Megan Bain win this because that would be something. And then also, or you can do Mina Shirakawa because Mina Shirakawa and Tony Storm are friends. You know, Mercedes Moné beats down Mina Shirakawa, takes it too far. Tony Storm, you create kind of like that animosity type of thing, really. But I would also do this because I think that that's what I would do. Mina Shirakawa wins this, but this is also good because you have Mina Shirakawa, Harley Cameron, Julia Hart, and Megan Bain. Like these four women mean a lot to the AEW Women's Championship division. So you need to kind of feature your other women strongly. Be like, hey, this is the future of AEW. We are actually bringing women to this division that can be somebody. We're not going to have them be like floaters like Nyla Rose or floaters like Billy Starks or Thunder Rosa. We're actually going to like feature more women strongly. The next match that I would do is, and so I'll have Mina Shirakawa win that one. Um, and then also I'll do Kyle Fletcher versus Adam Cole for the TNT Championship because they have to make the TNT Championship actually matter a lot. So I'm a little worried with Adam Cole actually being the champion because he had some animosity with Daniel Garcia, if I remember correctly, and then also Claudio. So I really don't want to do something like now the Death Riders is with Adam Cole, really. I think that they're also trying to do Adam Cole versus the Death Riders or Adam Cole versus, I don't know, like Daniel Garcia's group. I think they're trying to like, or the Don Callis family. I'm not sure what they're trying to do with Adam Cole, but it seems like they're going those directions. But I think that Kyle Fletcher needs to beat Adam Cole because you have to make the TNT title mean something. And I think that as of right now, Kyle Fletcher deserves a championship because almost like with Ricky Starks, you don't want to do something like you don't want to keep on waiting and waiting and waiting. You have to be like, okay, well, Kyle Fletcher has to have a life outside of Will Ospreay. And it seems like we're always like going back to what Kyle Fletcher is. He's ultimately a Will Ospreay jobber. And that's a lot of people in the Don Callis family. Their ultimate goal is to be the Team Rocket for Will Ospreay, So I think that the best thing that I can say is like give Kyle Fletcher the title. It would be surprising. And then you can do Kyle Fletcher versus Adam Cole in a rematch. You can do Kyle Fletcher versus Anthony Bowens. You can do Kyle Fletcher versus Daniel Garcia. You can do Kyle Fletcher versus another like up-and-comer babyface like Speedball Mike Bailey or Kevin Hart. There's so many different people that you can do. Or Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe. So I think that he needs to hold the title. They need to kind of like show that Don Callis family can actually have feuds and storylines outside of Will Ospreay. So I think that would be a really great option. The next match I'll do is Anthony Bowens versus Okada. And it's the same idea of what I've said many times, that you cannot do something where Okada's going to defend the title at All In. He needs to have other matches and other storylines as well, really. So, and then also too with Anthony Bowens trying to be the pride of AEW and wants to win a championship. I think that you don't know what they're going to do. It would be very unpredictable, it would be very unexpected. It'll be like putting two different people together and see if they have a chemistry. So it'll be worth doing. But what I would do is that I would have actually Anthony Bowens pin Okada, but the referee does not see it. And then you have Max Caster screw him over. And then at AEW All In, you have Max Caster go on a winning streak, and you have Max Caster versus Anthony Bowens in a Texas street fight or a Texas death match. And then that's when they have like that blow off thing. And you can argue that he was caught off guard. But then you have the next couple months where Max Caster's actually winning matches and you build up a good grudge match. And then you kind of say, okay, the winner should be Anthony Bowens, or they should do like, both of them get like count, both of them kind of like, go to a draw really. But I think that would be good too. You set that up really through this match. But you have Anthony Bowens beat Okada, get a 3 count on him. The referee doesn't see it, and then interference, and then Okada gets it. So that way Okada wins. But then you make Anthony Bowens look strong to say, okay, you know what? Now he's a great single star. So that's how I would do it. I want to do Bobby Lashley versus MJF. Like MJF says, like, hey, you want me to hurt people? I'm going to hurt you, Bobby Lashley. Let's have a match. And I think that's good because that's a dream match. MJF versus Bobby Lashley. And it would be good to do that. And then also get to kind of give Bobby Lashley weaknesses. I think that he's built a little too strong, and he's also bigger and stronger than all the roster, really. So I think that if you have MJF actually beat him that one time, this would be good. And then also if MJF betrays the Hurt Syndicate, you can do a rematch with them, but with different stakes. Like, it would fit more of a bloody hardcore match type of style. And they both have a brawler type of style. So I really think that I think they could have a really great match. If you want to put multiple matches on this card, that would be a big draw. Bobby Lashley versus MJF would be that. The next match that I would have is and then you have MJF beat Bobby Lashley. The next match that they should have is Kenny Omega versus Ricochet, and for the international title. So what I would do is that I think at the end of the match, I would have the Young Bucks hit Kenny Omega, and then you give the title to Ricochet. And then there's actually going to be a rematch in a steel cage on television or on another show, and then you give the title back to Kenny Omega. And that way you kind of create some doubt, really, over the title. You have to also show to your audience unpredictability. And that would be very unpredictable and unexpected. And I think that Ricochet could hold the title for about a month, really. Then you get close to All-In time. You put the title back on Kenny Omega. Maybe Kenny Omega cheats or whatever. Or maybe Okada hits Ricochet with the title with his Continental title by mistake, really. So they set up Okada versus Ricochet in the future. But I think that this would be the best way to go, really. You subvert expectations, but eventually give the title back to Kenny Omega. So I think that would be a good match because you have to create some unpredictability. The next match that I have is Nick Wayne versus Bandito for the ROH Championship, and there's a title versus title, ROH TV Championship versus ROH World Championship, and I would actually have Bandito win, and then Bandito says in Mexico, "Hey, I don't want to be a double champion. I don't want to hog all the titles. So what I'm going to do is give everybody a chance. You have a match at AEW Grand Slam where the ROH Championship, you give it you do the exact same thing. You do that like that match where it's like 5 people eliminator type of thing. Then you give it back to Nick Wayne. That's what I would do. Or you have like over the rope thing, or you do like a multi-man match and you give it back to Nick Wayne. That would be the best way that's what I would do. But the other reason why I want to do this match is because honestly, the ROH World Championship has to mean something. You can't say, well, Chris Jericho defended it at Dynasty, so therefore other people therefore when it's defended, it always has to be Chris Jericho defending it, and that's when it goes on to an AEW pay-per-view. It should be defended, on other major pay-per-views as well. Not every pay-per-view, but very rarely. And then also you just postponed AEW. You canceled and postponed AEW Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor. So it would be good to say, hey, well, this title means something. And I also think with the story of Christian Cage versus Nick Wayne should happen at AEW All In. But the way to get there is that you do like title versus title. Maybe Nick Wayne gets distracted, or Christian Cage bumps into him, or you do something. Or Nick Wayne gets overconfident, or Nick Wayne is bragging or whatever, or he gets caught cheating or whatever. You do something where he loses his title, and then you give it to Bandito, and then, with Bandito, he gives it up, and then Nick Wayne regains it. He becomes a 2-time champion. So I just think that would be my option, really. And then also, it's good. You want to build new stars, so you have Nick Wayne in this, and that would be good. The last match that I would have is the Young Bucks versus Speedball, Mike Bailey, and Kevin Knight for a tag team contendership. Because, again, I don't like having wrestlers wrestle twice in a night, really. Sometimes that's okay, but you can't overdo it. Both of these guys are really high-flyer people. And then also, one thing that I do like is that if you're going to have a match where there's going to be a lot of interference or whatever, I would like to give these wrestlers other matches on the card, really, to be like, okay, well, let's say they get injured or whatever, or they have a match and they need to sell an injury or being worn out. This way you prevent interference, because if you do too much interference, or you have a lot of matches where, there's interference or run-ins, or that happens always during every main event, it just gets boring and all that. So I think that honestly, you have this match, they're both fatigued, and then the winners face the Hurt Syndicate. You can have Kevin Knight and Mike Bailey, and that would be my direction. But I think the big money thing would be the Young Bucks versus the Hurt Syndicate. But that's what I would have to say about that. I think that would just be the match to have. And the last thing that I want to say is that it is AEW Double or Nothing. This should be like a 4.5 hour show, like midnight to like 12:30, because the last match should happen like at midnight because this is one of their big four pay-per-views. Dynasty, Wrestle Dream, um, should not be one of those shows where outside the big four, those other shows should not be ones that go over like at least 3 hours or 3.5 hours. So that's all I gotta say really. I think that my match card's very strong. There's a lot of good booking of people, and also just that you have your new generation being put up, and then also you have direction with people, and then you kind of see infighting leading to fights really. So hopefully I'm going to email Tony Khan this. I'm going to, put it on his Twitter thing, and hopefully he'll respond because, we need to make AEW great again. Like I said, if they said that they have 7,000 people, that's 33% of your audience being there. You have to make close to 21,000 people. I know like this script, this like idea for matches and other things like that would really help out AEW and make them, make that green.